Mhm. Love music, love life. You are welcome to Soul Food for today, 11th of October, 2025. Earlier, when I was telling you about the elements of the show, I told you that the month of October is Down Syndrome Awareness Month. And that means that we'll be having conversations about it so that we have the best form of
Love
education
music,
about it.
love life. You
Education,
are
as
welcome to
they
Soul Food
said,
for today,
is
11th of October.
as a weapon, and it helps to prevent many things. It helps to empower, and so it also helps to take informed decisions, and sometimes it helps us to even prevent whatever embarrassment that would have come on as a result of exhibiting ignorance. Plus, it helps us to also prevent some decisions that would have made because we didn't have enough information. So education is utterly important, and that's why we educate you about your health and wellness on the show Soul Food every Saturday from 8 till 8:30. So today we are talking about Down syndrome, understanding Down syndrome. What are the causes? What are the risk factors? How do we manage it? What do we do when we have people around us and so on? And I'm not going to be doing that alone. I do have someone who's an expert and is very much involved in educating people and also helping people as touching special needs and raising awareness about its issues from autism to Down syndrome. So please welcome a consultant, and she is the one that is in charge of Jordan Learning Consult. She is director, Jordan Learning Consult. Please welcome with me, Adelola George. Good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And we get right into it by trying to have an overview of what Down syndrome is. So if somebody mentions Down syndrome, what do you think
Okay.
people should think about when they hear Down syndrome?
All right. So, of course, first thing I would mention is that Down syndrome is primarily developmental disorder, which means that it affects how the individual develops. So that's the first thing to note. And the reason I say that is because that's the first thing parents have to deal with, you know. And of course, I would then talk about symptoms. But Down syndrome, unlike some other disabilities, shows on the face at birth, right from birth, and of course, as the person begins to grow, while it's will range in terms of severity or yes, severity, whether it's mild or anything, it will still show on the face, the eyes, the shape of the eyes, the fingertips, how their fingers look like, because oftentimes their fingers are short. And the person will not, the baby will not develop, will not meet their milestones like typically developing children. So they may not talk on time. Their motor skills, including even the next standing, crawling, will be affected. Just missing their developmental milestones. I mean, we live in a time where parents now have things, there's a lot of education in terms of what they should expect their child to be doing per time. And so a parent will have an app showing that, oh, at this time, this is what your child should be doing. And more often than not, all the time actually, a child with Down syndrome will not meet those developmental milestones. Now, let me mention Down syndrome, the person is born like that. It starts from conception. So there's nothing that could have been done to prevent it. Um, and it's lifelong. It's lifelong. It doesn't, but the impact can be dealt with. I mean, it's based on therapy, based on the right kind of support, family support, and all that the impact of Down syndrome can be reduced. Let me put it like that.
Whenever it concerns medical conditions, there is a line I hate to hear when we say it cannot be, nothing can be done. It always breaks my heart. So now I want to
Yeah.
understand, why do people have Down syndrome? Because I understand it's an extra pair of chromosomes, right? So what
Yes,
causes
yes.
it?
The most known cause is the age of parents, particularly the mother. The older a
Oh,
woman
wow.
gets, the chances. I mean, it's interesting. If you do read about it, they tell you 35 upwards, a woman is prone to having a child with Down syndrome. And to a large extent, almost every parent I've met, does meet that criteria. But I have met a few parents. I remember working with a child with Down syndrome many years ago, about 12, 12, 13 years ago, whose mom was still in her 20s. And that definitely defies that statistics. But the older the parents get, and generally many conditions can be caused because the parents are older. The parents are older, particularly the mother.
Wow.
And so what happens, let me just mention that what happens is that there's an extra chromosome, as you mentioned. I mean, one good thing in Nigeria, everybody does biology in secondary school. And secondary school biology does teach us about the 23 chromosomes from the father, 23 chromosomes from the mother that make up the genes of the genetics of the child. And one parent, in this case, and just it could be the father, it could be the mother. Well, one parent in this case releases an extra chromosome 21. So apparently those chromosomes are numbered and they have different genes that they are carrying. So the parent releases an extra chromosome 21, and that child has 47 chromosomes as against having 46. And but then there are some rare ones that is just genetics. Not there's still that extra chromosome, but it is not as a result of the common reason of 1 year old, and then so one person releases an extra chromosome, but there is always that extra chromosome 21.
Still trying to unravel this issue and what can be done. These days, I'm certain that you would have come across the increasing awareness and people flocking into this or doing more of it. Women freezing their eggs. So if a woman who was in her 20s and understands or believes, okay, as a result of increasing age, it might affect the child and maybe bring on the onset of this. If they decide to freeze their egg, would it still increase the chance or it's good?
So while I'm not a medical expert and I haven't done any research in that regard, I have heard. I mean, I'm not hearing from grapevine. It's conversations. Why? I mean, when they talk about benefits of freezing eggs, they talk about the viability of the egg. But because the truth about that, as a woman gets older, and our eggs are definitely less viable. So there's that conversation, but I'm not a medical expert. I haven't even done, I think I have not paid attention to it, but that conversation, because I'm a woman, right? And that conversation is out there and they're constantly talking about the viability of egg. I work with children with special needs, and it's that egg viability is definitely a theme in our space. We're not really talking because so here's the thing for us as professionals. We don't focus on causes and prevention. We focus on this is already existing. How do we address it? How do we ensure that this child, how does it ensure that this child thrives despite the disability? So it's not a conversation that I will pay attention, that will benefit my work. But as a woman, myself, it's a conversation that I'm aware of.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe we'll have to have that entire separate conversation because age is supposed to be a blessing. You know, it can't that it shouldn't be a risk factor for some things like this because 35 is pretty it's early. 35 is still early.
And so it's not 35 just starts it. So it's not necessarily. I mean, there are women in their 50s who have children who do not have Down syndrome or even any outright developmental disability. But I mean, this is just off the record. You know, we live in a time where there are conversations about women. Look, it's not off the record because this is often being recorded and so on. But we have conversation right now about age. I mean, conception and how and the benefits of delayed conception. But if a health practitioner was going to speak, they wouldn't recommend that lifestyle. But the truth is, so now I'll also speak from my own field and perspective. We cannot prevent women from having children after 35. We cannot say women should not have children after 35. But like I said, I worked with a child before whose mom was not. I mean, at this time, this child was 3 years old. The mother was still in her 20s. So it means that, I mean, if that woman, even if she wanted to follow doctor's orders, she still has a child with Down syndrome, right? But secondly, I mean, so I think a world at large looks a lot. Of course, there are professionals, there are scientists looking at prevention of all these things. How do we prevent these things? But most times in my field, I look at now that it is here, what do we do?
What do we do?
Because we can't, I mean, for example, a couple tries to conceive for many years, and then the woman is 35. They say, okay, oh, we're not trying again. No, let's go and adopt a child. No, they want to have their own kids, and they're going to try. And the truth about it is that it's a possibility, not a guarantee, right? So, and there was a time, and there is still that conversation, maybe in the West, where they definitely, when women are pregnant, everywhere in the world, including Nigeria, they check the baby in the womb, if there's any genetic disorder, any congenital disorder that they have to, they advise parents to take it out. But one of the things that self-advocacy has helped us to see, and looking at life from the eyes of a person with that disability, is that it's also not a good stance to say, oh, let's take the egg out. Because number one, that thing, we've read stories of people saying their children were stillborn and they didn't have the disability. Secondly, the people with Down syndrome will tell you that, see, I'm living the best of my life. I'm living the best life. I mean, of course, some of them might not have that story because exposure is very important. Family support is very important. Well, for some families, some children are having the worst of times because their parents are neglecting them, treating them like a curse. But you know, a child who is loved and is able to thrive despite the disability will tell you that I'm grateful that my parents didn't take me out. So maybe, and that's why I do what I do. I work with children with special needs. I teach children with special needs. I work with schools to teach children with special needs so that regardless of the disability, that person has an opportunity to thrive and live the best life possible, regardless of disability.
Thank you. Let's move in then. So if a child, because you mentioned earlier that you start to see the features, I think there is a characteristic look, the face, the way the face is shaped. Now you understand that this child has a Down syndrome. As a parent, as a guardian, what should you do? Maybe as early as it's spotted, what should you do?
As early as it's spotted, to be honest, first thing is make sure, I mean, there's postnatal, right? You and the doctor should have conversations about monitoring the child, because you want to monitor more than. So let me mention that Down syndrome does not just affect physical features, it affects other things. It can result to other things. There are many individuals with Down syndrome who have heart issues, either there's a hole in the heart. In fact, because I used to blog and I just went to my blog on Down. I used to blog and I've written an article a lot on Down syndrome, and in that reading that I remember that one of my when I started to work in this field, one of my first contacts with working with children with special needs was me visiting Down Syndrome Foundation. At that time, they were sending, I mean, they had just raised money to send a child to India for heart surgery. And of course, when I got there, they were talking about the heart surgery. I was like, would that cure the child? They're like, no, it just gives a chance at life. Because, and then that was how and of course, by the time you just read up on it, and as you meet people along the way, quite some of them have a hole in the heart and all of that. And of course, Down syndrome can affect intellectual ability. So it's, in fact, many individuals with Down syndrome have low intelligence, so intelligence quotient. And so first of all, you want to pay attention to the child's health, monitor the developmental milestones. And guess what? It's interesting that you can also help these developmental milestones. So for example, I said that motor skills are delayed, the child may not call on time, may not walk on time, and some pressures leave them. But the truth is that by getting some physiotherapy that the doctor is going to recommend, the child, I mean, you can meet those milestones faster. There's speech impairment, working with a speech and language therapist, even working as a parent on engaging the child in vocal imitation, building imitation skills, just interacting with the child. You are helping that child build the muscles, the oral muscles. And of course, speech and language therapists definitely will do more professional things to build those muscles and increase the chance of the child speaking earlier. So the first person to work closely with is the doctor, who is I'm the medical team checking the milestones and recommending the professionals to help you with that. Now, the next step is looking at education. Like education, to start as early as possible. Start fast. The earlier you started, the better for you. The child's chances are increased for learning when they start early. Preferably recommended get special education. Special education can be in special education centers or schools, or a school that is inclusive and can provide. It's not just putting a child in a school, ensuring that the school can provide education for that child. Like that school has a plan. Either they have a special education department, preferably they have a special education department that is going to meet your child's needs. And that's as early childhood. It is not when a child is older that I want to start learning how to teach them. From the tender age, from 2 years, they are learning their letter sounds and all those things. And somebody is there to teach them the way that they can learn is very important.
Thank you. It feels like there are so many parts of it. Now, does it mean that for each, you have concurrent therapies, or because I checked online and I saw a number of things. It feels like you have the intellectual parts, you need this one for it, you need a therapist for this. For some, the body, the pain, you need another therapist for it.
Yes.
So you have many treatments going on at the same time?
Yes, although to be honest, at the end of the day, it's recommended that you are addressing what the child needs per time. Okay. So, for example, like I talked about physiotherapy, now not every child with Down syndrome will need physiotherapy. So, that's why I said work directly, work closely with your doctor, work closely with your pediatrician, to be honest, because they can see the signs and demand that they are honest with you. I've learned that in Nigeria, either from just visiting the hospital myself and interacting, and then also interacting with parents. Sometimes doctors try to give you a soft landing and they don't want to tell you the truth. So you have to demand for the truth. You have to demand for and say, tell me what it looks like. Tell me the worst case scenario and what I should do if there's a worst case scenario. One of the things that we are also lucky about now is that there's much more awareness when it comes to special needs and developmental disabilities. So doctors know that people know these things. They too, I mean, I've learned that when parents demand the truth, doctors are more open. Even though that's not sure, they're like, let me get back to you on what, this is what the textbook says, but let me do my research on how effective these services have been or where you can get the services. To be honest, the first time I was mentioned, because finance does play a part. And so when you look at the concurrent therapies, you're like, it's a lot of money. But to be honest, there is government hospitals in Nigeria also provide these services. While it might not be consistent, yes, they do. If you go to any teaching hospital, definitely. I have lived in how many states in my life? When I worked I schooled in Ife and I worked in Ife, and I knew that OAU THC and OAU THC, and then there was a specialist hospital, there was a government hospital, state hospital in Ife. They both had physiotherapists that were working in the hospitals, and they work with these families. Lagos State, I live in Lagos State right now. There's the teaching hospitals in Lagos, the government hospitals in Lagos, and a health center would not have, but those teaching hospitals, those standard hospitals, like let's say general hospitals, would have physiotherapists, they will have speech and language therapists, they have these things. Because they might be overwhelmed, you might not have, they have occupational therapists. The only one I know that's not the one you might not easily get from you can't get what you cannot get from the government hospital with special education, if your child is behavior therapy or something. But if it comes to speech therapy, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, now because they are overwhelmed with the number, your child will have appointment days and maximize those appointment days. It might be once in a month, it might be once in 2 months. When you go, watch what they are doing, ask questions, let the doctor tell you what to do at home and do it at home as well. And of course, so the families that can afford getting private help can do that as well. But not every family in Nigeria can afford to get private help. But the good thing is that there is government services in most states in Nigeria. I mean, if Osun State has it, I want to believe it's everywhere.
Hopefully, and again, hopefully we have people who have the ability to make those policies and make these things happen so that everybody can have some sort of access to it. It'll be great
Yes.
because therapy in different forms can be expensive.
Yes.
So it'll
Another
be
thing
great.
a parent can do is find support groups. So support
Mm,
groups also create opportunities for either discounted or free therapy as well. Or parents who have been there before can tell you what they've done to help their children. And that's something I recommend. Find support groups. And if I'm allowed, I can mention first of all online. You should just say, "Oh, find support groups online." And I can speak for one support group on that started off on Facebook. They now have other ways that they do it, but they started off on Facebook, and so they are still very active on Facebook. It's Super Parents. Almost anybody who is listening to this who works in my space knows Super Parents because and it's not for Down syndrome families only, it's for every kind of disability. But the idea is that I am aware that they also have, in Lagos at the minimum, they have provisions for free or subsidized therapy because they have professionals that work closely with them. And I'm sure that there are others. There are others that you can find. Yes, there's Down Syndrome Foundation, there's Save Down Syndrome in Nigeria. So that parent should find those connections. Knowing that you're not alone is even enough, is a starting point for the
mm,
parent. Knowing that somebody else has gone through this and there are people with Down syndrome who are thriving here in Nigeria. Their children, they are in schools, some of them are they are teenagers or adults, they are working, they have learned a skill. Some of them are, based on their level of intelligence, they have gone to school and they are working or they are doing some arts or I mean, some years ago, there was a guy with Down syndrome that was the main actor on what's this? My Super Story. Super Story. Remember Super Story?
I
Papa
do.
I just school people.
Yes, I do.
There was a main actor, a guy with Down syndrome. That was a main actor there. I mean, and I've stumbled on some movies in Nigeria where the individual with Down syndrome inside because because they've gotten the support that they require to thrive. So parents need to connect to know. I mean, because like I said, for my profession, we look a lot at next steps. How do we ensure that this person is thriving despite
Mm,
disability?
thank
But of
you.
course, if a woman can give birth earlier, then she should go for it.
I'll have one final question, which is following up on what you just said. But in case you're listening to us for the first time, or you just turned on your radio set, and you're wondering what's going on here, we're trying to understand the syndrome, Down syndrome, because it's Down Syndrome Awareness Month. And we've been talking about what it is and how it comes on, the risk factors, what you can do in managing it, and early onset or early it presents itself really early. You just need to follow up with quick education and quickly doing something about it. And so you can join us. Well, if you have a question, I have only 1 or 2 minutes to take any question that you might have before we wrap it up this morning on Soul Food. So WhatsApp line to send your message to, if you have any question, is 0911 999 0981. Again, 0911 999 0981. So back to the question I said I was going to ask you. You did mention it a few times that there are people who are thriving, who've got the Down syndrome and they are thriving. Is it linked to how it was quickly dealt with or quickly managed, or there are other factors that contribute to the severity of the symptoms that a person experiences when they're diagnosed with Down syndrome?
So generally, for just like any disability, the severity would definitely play a role. There are milder cases, and there are some severe, in fact, let me say profound cases. But that's regardless of which one, the support that the person gets and how early they get it determines the quality of life they will live. So a child whose parents are engaged, who is loved, that's the first thing, because that's the thing that motivates the child. And the parents put in the right training, and I mean training as a whole, training as a child, you're not spoiling the child, because they have a disability, but you train them as a child, you identify their strengths on time. Those are the things that now help them to thrive. Across the world at large, a parent finds that their child enjoys food and cooking. And they're like, okay, you know what? Let's get you learning how to cook. And the child learns it. They might learn it differently from a typically developing person or someone with a typical brain. Then might learn it differently, but they learn to cook. And before you know it, we are talking about getting a job. The world, I mean, and that applies in Nigeria as well. You know, people find out that their children are interested in some sport, there's this, Engraced Ones is on social media. I should mention that they also have physical meetings, but Engraced Ones. And I was watching, they had this month, in August, they had this inclusion runway and all of that. So they have models with different kinds of disabilities. And it was a beautiful show. Guess what? It's not just those events that matter, because what then happens is that people come and poach. They see that this person is trained to be, I mean, they have a disability, but they really, really do well as a professional model. And the person gets a job post that. So it's the exposure that matters. First, the support and the love, and then getting the education. So get your child to education services, identifying the child's strength, definitely, and then building on those strengths, the child's interest, the child, because let me quickly mention that in therapy, the few things the child will learn, the child will build fine motor skills, they'll build their fine motor skills, eye-hand coordination, they'll build language, they'll expand language and all of those things. And all of those skills that they are building will amplify their strength. And then as a parent, you can build on that interest. And I mean, with social media, there's no stopping any child or any parent.
Indeed. Before I let you go, I know that I said I was going to be the final question, but this will be the final question now. As someone who works with people and children with special needs, please help distinguish between what counts as love and what counts as pity when relating with children or people with special needs.
That's a fantastic question. The first thing that counts as love is dignity and respect. You know, you must show children, respect children's dignity. And then presume competence. Presume competence does not mean insisting, forcing them to do things, but supporting them to ensure that they do the things that they have to do. But love really is caring, desiring the best for this individual. So that's the emotional part of it. The first thing you must take inside of you is that you have a sense, you desire the best for them, and then you ask yourself, how would I want to be treated? If I want to try, if I'm left on my own, even in a school setting as a teacher, if I leave the child to themselves, they're not going to learn anything. Even if I say, because I don't want them to cry, I don't want them to be sad. No, I support them to learn. I respect them. Give the right support. Discipline is very important. Children must learn boundaries, regardless of whether they have a disability or not. And discipline does not have to be violent or aggressive or abusive. It shouldn't be, but it's putting the right discipline in place to ensure that the child knows that there are boundaries. But the child must always know that whatever you are doing to them, even the discipline, the training, is for their own good.
Thank you for that clarity. And with that, we've come to the end of the conversation today, but we'll not let you go without you telling us your social media handle. What's your handle?
Thank you. Well, I think my current active social media handle is Instagram, Adelola George. There's also, because I run a business, we have Jordan Learning Consults on Instagram. And then, so Adelola George on any platform. Then there's Autism Gist, which has not been very active recently. It's on every platform. If anybody sends me a message on any of these platforms, I will see it. So whether it's on Jordan Learning, Autism Gist, or Adelola George on any social media platform, I will definitely see it.
And that's our guest for today, the director of Jordan Learning Consult, Adelola George, not Adeola. Adelola George. It's important.
Yes, thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for taking time to be here with us and to educate us on what Down syndrome is and how we can manage it. And so Next week, we'll be back again on Soul Food from 8 till 8:30, talking about one thing or the other that relates to you, your quality of life, and your health. Now, 8:40, we'll be having the children come on Curious Minds. And guess what? There is a special for them because Uncle Constructionist is giving out money to children. So you want to come around and be a part of it. They're going to be learning, they're going to be answering questions and spelling. So go and wake that child up who's between 6 to 15 years of age, and let's have fun together on Curious Minds. My name is Oluwaseun Olusegun. Mind and the rest of the Thank you. Let me allow you get back to your day.